All right, good morning. We're back on the frame today. Last weekend, my son and I pulled a 5.3 LS out of an Avalanche for the donor motor for this project. We'll get into that more later. I want to kind of go through and assess it, make sure it's worth it, but we'll do all that. So one of the things that keeps coming up, specifically Louis keeps asking me to make a comment on this, but how much time do I have into doing this frame as it sits right now? And I think I didn't keep really super close tabs on it, to be honest, but I think I'm at about 60 hours between prep, TIG welding. Now, I'm not a very fast TIG welder, so I got a feeling if somebody was better at it, they could knock this off in probably about somewhere between 30 and 40 hours. That would seem, you know, especially if you've done a couple of them and you know what to expect and what to do. Certain things sped it up, you know, like being able to use the tumbler, that sped things up drastically. You can see where I used the surface conditioner on some of this metal, and it made it go a lot quicker. So, you know, that would be my, if you're trying to consider round numbers, I think you're about 40 hours. So, next thing I need to do is fit up the K-member. Now, interestingly, I kind of thought one of these two holes would line up with the other bolt hole here. It does not. So, the idea is that you clamp this up, get it flat against the bottom pad, then either drill another hole for a second bolt, for the other bolt, but you're pretty much good to go anyway. Then once you get all that sorted out, you're going to weld the K-member directly to the frame. You don't just bolt it in, which I was under the impression you just bolted it in. But after looking through a lot of the photos and talking to Russell at Nerd Rods, no, you actually weld this in. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to mark where that second hole goes. I'm going to go through with a punch in the back, mark that, then come back and hit the, then I'm going to pull the K-member out and I'm going to sandblast it, get it cleaned up, ready to go in. You know, get it as sandblasted as I need it to be, get all the crap off it so that it's pretty much ready for paint. Then I can take it and slap it back in, bolt it up, weld it, and all of that. And I'll take you through how I do that process. As you can see, some of this, you know, these angles and stuff, it's impossible for him to make all this true. So what he does is he gives you an area here where there's a little gap on the top, and I'm going to show you how I am going to deal with that. Other than that, everything is ready to go. Then the next step will be to fab up and start building up the motor mounts and putting a mock motor in here and getting it lined up. So yeah, that'll be exciting, and that's where we're going to head to today. I don't know how far we're going to get with the motor and stuff, but I'd really love to have this K-member in and lined up properly. Oh, I'm sorry. The first thing I need to do is double check that this K-member is lined up with the chassis. In other words, making sure that the K-member's in there square. I believe it is, and I also believe there ain't much I'm going to be able to do if it isn't, but I want to make sure it is to start with anyway. So we'll do that next. Okay, so I measured it up. I measured from this point back to the rear end mounting points, and I'm within a 1/16 of an inch left and right. That's not worth trying to line it up any tighter than that because I'm not going to have to do anything strange to do it. So what I'm going to do is continue on. I've marked where these holes need to be drilled, and I'm going to pull the K-member out now, and I guess I'm just going to clean it up, hit it with some brake clean, sandblast it where I need to, and get ready to stick it back in. All right, so I took this thing out, sandblasted, just gave it a light sandblast, and I didn't go too crazy. So got it back in, had my buddy Paul was here, so he helped me line that up, measure it up, and we're dead nuts accurate now with the rear end. So, what I'm going to do, and I've debated back and forth, MIG TIG. I think I'm going to MIG this. But I'm going to lay this rod in here so I have a nice gap filler. Then I'll be able to really just put a nice bead in there and make this all look good. Rather than trying to jump a 3/16 gap. It isn't quite 3/16, it's more like a heavy 1/8, which you could do. But I would rather just go through like this, and then I can make it look really nice. Bend this rod as I go. And yeah, I think that's my plan. I've sprayed everything down with anti-splatter spray and should be good to go. So let's see what happens. Okay, so I just started tacking that and welding it up around the edge. Then I just take a hammer, when it's nice and warm, and I just start forming it down into that hole, and I'll tack that as I get it tight. You can see I got a little bit more to do, but literally it's as simple as just kind of working it through like that. It's pretty straightforward. Anyway, so I'm going to keep going with that. You can see that it looks all right. I just keep the anti-splatter spray handy. And I'll just keep working that right up around the edge, down this side, and all of that. Then I've got to weld through here and get that done as well. Okay, that pretty much wraps that up. So I basically took that rod and went all the way around, just bent it right in there nice and neat, and then was able to bead right across it, and that gives you a good solid surface with something to fill that gap. So, and there's no gap on the bottom, it's just these are a slightly different angle than these, and that's the way it is. So, next I'm going to roll it over and start working on the other side. Okay, those are all set. Both sides, I got them welded right up nice. Those aren't going anywhere. I might take those bolts back out and throw some Loctite on them, just so that they can never come apart. Not that they matter now, they're more just filling holes. So, next step. I got to get the motor mounts ready. As part of this kit, there's some motor mounts I have to assemble, weld up, and I guess I'll do those next. I'll show you what I'm into. So this is the motor mount kit. These plates obviously attached to the block. And again, it's, tab and slot. Set it up with a magnet, get it tacked in real good so it can't move, and then weld it up. That's pretty much it. Then I'm going to flip them over, weld in the slot, and then we'll work on the stanchions, the risers for the frame section. All right, so these are the stanchions. Again, slot and tab, just got to weld the two pieces together, and then this piece goes in the top. Then there's a rubber bushing, or polyurethane bushing, and that's it. Just weld them up. So I'm gonna go ahead and move through these real quick. I don't know if you noticed, I did switch to a 10 cup on my TIG. And I'm getting a much better looking weld as far as shine goes. The other welds were a little dull, so I tried a bigger cup, especially with this thicker material, and it seems to help me. Not sure that it'd be the same for everybody, but I got a boost out of it just by less cleaning and less polishing the welds after I'm done with wire brush and whatnot. So I'm going to move through this one, put the rings on, and I think that's all there is to assembling this until they're in the frame. So we'll go from there. This is bullshit. Look at this. Okay, so here's my mock-up. This is an LS mock-up that has a 4L80 transmission mock-up, but it's close enough for right now. So the trick is, I've got to first figure out what height I want the motor to sit at. This oil pan is one I had. It was a muscle car pan. It's still a little too tall for this application, so I think I'm going to need to get the 302-2 Holly pan, which I put on my Firebird, which is about almost 3 inches shorter than this one. So that should give me all the clearance I need. I can then cut this off about right here, close to the bottom of that hole, and I should have the right height. So that's my plan. I'm going to go and cut the 2 motor mounts off right now, get those cut off, ready to go back in, and then I'll set the motor down, see where my tail ends up. I've just got it sitting on the cross member right now because it's so out of whack. And then I've got some, the idea up here is apparently that I want to land this line on the power steering rack between the pulley and the block. According to Russell, that's the position you want. Now, there's a ton of adjustability here. They're slotted here. You can flip these upside down and pick them up on the other side. So you can, there's a number of offsets you can achieve with this setup. I've got it in the middle of the slots right now, just to start with, and I will figure that out after I get these cut. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut these down to a height I know is good for the 302 pan, and start from that. Yeah, this mock-up is from Speedway Motors. She's not much on power, but she's good on gas. So, you know, keeps you in the game. But it's super light. I can just pick that up and throw it in there. I don't need to winch shit in and move stuff around. And this is a tool I didn't mind buying because I'll have it forever. So, and it talks about the pulley space, crank pulley spacing from the front of the block, and it has the 3 different spacings. We're doing the truck one, obviously, because it's a truck motor. So let's get those cut off, and we'll start from there. I might cut them a little taller at first, just to make sure, and then cut them a second time, but we'll see. Okay, so here's where I'm at. I trimmed 3 1/4 off each one of these. I am just below the 5th hole. Okay, I get a good, I'm like 0.1 degrees, 0.2 degrees, so almost baseline 0, which is where I want to be because the rear end is baseline 0. So I did flip this upside down for right now. Unclear whether I should have it that side up or the other side up, but the tab is offset and it works out almost perfectly if I flip it up that way. I would just have to run the exhaust up and over here before I did my cross and into my pipes, which isn't a big deal, but yeah, just one way to go. So now the forward location is basically you want to get this line in between the block and the pulley. So if I measure over to that line, I'm about 3 inches to the front of that line, and the pulley's at 3 1/4. So I'm safe. Now, and if the front of the pulley is 5.625, that's way out here. So plenty of room, which would also leave roughly 12 1/2. So let's just say another 6 inches between the radiator and the front of the pulley. So, you know, it's tight, but I could slide this back probably another 1/2 inch, super easy if I had to. I could come forward a lot. But I think that's where I want to be. I'm gonna double check my center line here, but I'm fairly confident I'm very close. But I wanna make sure before I tack these in that I have that right. I did level the chassis all up before I did this just to make sure everything was proper. But again, The pinion angle on the back is 90 degrees as opposed to the frame rails, and so is the motor right now. So, you know, there will be a little bit of offset left to right because the pinion's not perfectly centered, obviously, but that's kind of where we're at. So, I did want to double check the pinion angle on this face. It should be right angled, but who knows? It's not quite. It's like a degree off, but I don't know how much I trust that. I'm trusting the drive line of the block first. And again, I'll check all this with the real motor and adjust the height in the back accordingly. So, that's kind of where I'm at. Again, I want to make sure my motor is center lined down through the chassis. And by doing that, I can then tack in these front motor mounts, get these into position, pull the motor out, and weld those up. I could probably weld up a lot of it with the motor still in there. The mock motor. So, yeah, let's continue on. That's kind of where I want to be. Before I do that, however, I do want to test fit my headers to make sure they work their way down through here okay. It looks like I got a ton of room. These are the same headers I used on the Firebird. They're shorties, so gives you a lot of versatility in plumbing. So I'm gonna just slap a couple of those on there real quick and just make sure that's right. And then I'll center line this first and then slap those on. Okay, so I put the laser on it, got everything straightened out down through the tail here, right down through the center rib of the chassis. I got plenty of room on my steering column. That'll come right up through here nicely. No problem there. I just got to remember to put this reinforcement down low. No biggie. So, feeling pretty good about this location. Again, this is a 4L80 mock-up. I've got a 4L60 transmission, so it's about 1.5 inches shorter, which will help this all line up. So I think I'm in pretty good shape, and I can flip this over. I just need to make the appropriate spacer if that's where I need to go with it. One interesting thing I learned is the pads here on this K-member this one's about 1 inch longer than the one on the right-hand side. That had me really wrapped around the axle for a minute there. But it looks pretty good. Pretty happy with that location. I've got 3 inches to the front of this pin here. To this line. So my pulley sits about 1/4 inch further than that. And I should be in good shape. And actually the pictures I saw on the Nerd Rod site pretty much had the front of the block lined up with the center, with the front hole on the A-frame. So I am pretty much right there. So, that all checks out. I'm pretty confident in the location. I will tack those up momentarily after I fit up the headers and see how they go in. I just got to drag them down off the shelf and then check my list, make sure I'm not forgetting anything else before I commit. But sometimes you just got to commit. So, looking good. Not too bad. The old mock-up is, this is super handy. I like this thing. It really allows me to, play around with different things without a lot of weight. I can just lift it up. I don't need to crane it. So, I wish they had a 4L60 transmission, and maybe they will at some point, but I will just keep an eye out for that. Anyway, looking pretty good. Just going to, would have been nice if they'd put a mark on the front of this thing, like one of these laser etch marks for centerline, but, can't have everything. Anyway, I did, on the Firebird, with the Heights chassis, the motor is cheated to the right about 1 inch. That is not the case here. This is right down the center line. I think that's okay. I don't really have a problem with that, but I just got to make sure my steering shaft and everything clears. Anyway, all right, let's see what I got. I'll put the headers on. Okay, so we got the headers on there, and they fit fine. I don't know what this is, but this does not exist on the 4L60. So I'm not really sure why they have that there. When I pull the headers off, I'll just bend that up out of the way or cut it off, or just don't worry about it. So the headers seem to work fine. There's plenty of room to head down through there. And when I'm looking at that 4L60 over there, there's even more room because it doesn't have this weird flange on the bottom. So headers look good. I think that's going to work perfectly. They kind of naturally tilt back to this point here where they'll line up nicely with a flex pipe in between. Looking good. I think this is going to work out. So I'm ready to tack in the motor mounts. I'll tack them in quickly, but then pull the headers back off because I did jostle things around a little bit when I was putting the headers on. But it should work out. Double check my measurement in the front as well, make sure I didn't lose anything. And then we'll pull the motor out of the way to finish the welding and do the gussets. And I'll show you what those are all about in a minute. Okay, so we're all welded up. I got the gussets into the frame rail. Yeah, that should be good. Now, next step is I've got to put on the front A-frames so I can mock up the position of the sway bar, so I can put the sway bar brackets on the frame for the pivot brackets. So let me drag all that stuff out. Okay, so I have set the sway bar in there, got the end of it lined up roughly over that. It's the best I can do. And then I've tacked in my bracket. There's really no good locators or anything like that for that, so I've just kind of had to even it up, make it parallel, and hope for the best, I guess. So I'm gonna roll this down. I'm gonna pull the sway bar out, roll this down, weld that up. I got a lot of stuff to clear off before I can roll anything, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Hopefully I'll get this done quickly. All right, so I welded those in. I got lazy and migged them in because, well, I just did. I'm about out of gas for today. If anybody's interested in how I located these tabs, I went down 2 1/4 to the top of this plate, to the top of this surface. So hit this surface to this surface, 2 1/4. And this is about 5/8, this point is about 5/8 up from the seam. Okay, and I matched angles by doing 2 1/4 and then 2 1/4. So I got my angle the same, and that really tucks the sway bar up in there nice, gets it up high enough so I don't think it'll be a problem. Now this sway bar goes over the top of the tie rod ends. Initially I'd put it in there under the tie rod ends, but Russell was nice enough to point that out, and I did find some pictures about the same time. So yeah, that's about it for this chassis. Now all I got to do is clean up a bunch of welds, take all the pieces back off, and it's ready for paint. And when I say clean up welds, I got to go through and wire brush all the welds, get rid of any contamination or flux, and just get to work on that. Let me show you something. So I'll tell you a story. When I ordered my gas tank, it was a little too tight. I designed it a little too tight, okay? But at the same time, when I ordered it, they put the brackets on upside down. So Wayne down at RCI had put the bracket going in and down instead of in and up, which made my tightness problem even more tight. So, I didn't want to disparage the guy or anything, so I just told him, hey, here's a new drawing. I'm going to order another one. I made it too tight, and I said the bracket was on upside down, so I had to spread frame rails to get it in, and I just think that's too tight. So he says, no, send me that tank back. So I sent the tank back to him. He cut 3/4 of an inch off the width of it, welded it back up. I can't even tell. Then he decided to powder coat it for me because he said it's all scratched up. Didn't like the look of it. So now it's all powder coated too. And didn't charge me anything. I was like, wow. I even told him, I said, hey, you know, you're doing a lot of extra work here. I'm happy to pay for it. He goes, nope, it was my fault. I'm like, okay. So RCI Racing, or RCI, those guys are solid. I mean, look at this tank, dude. Look at the beads on that. It's just an aluminum tank. It's got a fuel sending unit. This is where it goes up through the bed. It's a nice job. Really, really nice product. So, thank you, Wayne. If you see this, I appreciate it. It looks great. And it's got the taper in the front here so that the kind of tapers down so that the sway bar clears. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of riv nuts up in here, maybe 3, and possibly hang a plate in here to put the fuel pump and the pre-filter on it. The output for the tank is down here, so I'm going to come around this side, right up through here, pick up whatever, and then send it forward. And I might actually cut a tube through this, you know, cut a hole on both sides, fish a tube through it, weld that back up, weld the tube right in there so I have a nice channel for my hoses to run through. I do that a lot when I have to go through a frame rail because I don't like to expose it to atmosphere or weaken anything. So that would keep it nice and strong. So, strong like bull. Anyway, this is pretty much, other than those couple little pointers back here I talked about, I think it's pretty much ready for paint. Just got to clean all my welds, do all my wire brush work, get all the metal cleaned again, prep it. I am going to hit it with a, I use an epoxy primer obviously, but then I use a ceramic chassis paint from Eastwood. It's a gloss black chassis paint. I find that is very, very durable. I like it. And you can buy it in spray bombs if you ever have to do a small area. So, once again, we'll get this ready, and hopefully by next weekend we'll be painting this chassis, which would be awesome. I'd love to have this in paint next week. Then I can put away everything I need to put away for the winter. As you saw the shot earlier, it's snowing out there this morning. I mean, big goofy flakes too. Stupid. But anyway, we're getting there. Very happy with this product. I will say that every time I've had a question, I text Russell. It doesn't matter what time of day and night. He'll get back to me as soon as he can, and at Nerd Rods, and answer my questions. Like I said, it's a little light on documentation, but hopefully this little series will help him with that. He can send anybody he wants to this, and it'll be pretty self-explanatory from hopefully the way I've described it. So I'm going to wrap this up for here. Like, subscribe, share the videos. I'll keep you guys posted as we move along, but we're gaining ground every day. So then we can get this painted and start putting the chassis together. So yeah, there it is. Nice.